Hello everyone! I know it's hard to believe, but I'm finally back after many fruitless promises of posting a video. What's it been like, 2 years? I'm so sorry, I've just been busy with work and school and everything, so things have finally started to calm down a little bit, so I thought I'd make this video. This is the one I was talking about long ago. And in this video I wanted to focus on a subject that is often overlooked in our current, mostly secular Western society, and that is the interconnectedness of men, women, families, and religion. Firstly, let me say that it's always a lot easier to criticize something than it is to promote it. And unfortunately in today's society this is very true for religion. This video is going to be an attempt to promote a very small topic within my religion. I'm sure we can all agree that nowadays religion, especially organized religion, receives a pretty bad rap. Think about the last time you heard something good about church on the news. I mean, I can't really, but I sure can recall all the times that I've heard of Catholic priests sexually abusing little boys. I'm not saying those things didn't happen, but I'm saying that judging from what I hear, that's all that Catholic priests ever do. And somehow I don't believe that. So, now I'm not Catholic. So I'm not going to talk about Catholicism for fear of making a mistake, but I want to talk about women in the Bible and what the woman's role is, and essentially defend the Bible from the accusations with which it has been faced in that regard, and talk about the man's role as well from a religious standpoint, and specifically for Christian Orthodoxy. I am Russian Orthodox, and before you tell me that my views are biased because I was raised that way, let me refute that by saying that I chose to be as religious as I am. Yes, my first time in church was with my parents, but I was raised by people who grew up in the Soviet Union, where kids were taught to spit on their grandparents when those tried to pray, and they were taught that the church actually started world wars, and that they were taught that priests and monks were traitors of the fatherland, things like that. So these are the people who raised me. In their mid-30s, when I was in my teens, they discovered the church for themselves, but never really pushed me or themselves to take it too seriously, until they saw me take it seriously a few years ago. So as far as I understand, feminists generally believe that the Bible dehumanizes women, puts them below men, and in general makes them seem less important than the other sex. Of course, nothing could be further from the truth. The Bible reveres women, as does religion, especially I'm talking about in this case my religion. Women are upheld with the utmost veneration and love, and not just as birth givers. And so now I'm going to show you what I mean. So also I'm going to be focusing more on the New Testament, because I believe in Christianity. I think we're closer to the New Testament than the Old Testament, which is more for Judaism. But this part relates more to the Old Testament. So first let's start with the prophets. Some people seem to believe that only men were mentioned as prophets, but in fact in both the Old and the New Testament there is an abundance of women prophets whose jobs were of the same importance, if not higher, than the male prophets. To name a few, there were Sarah, Esther, Ruth, Hannah, Anna, Elizabeth. You can look all these up, and the list goes on. All these women were of great importance, sometimes even military and political, to the survival of first Judaism and then Christianity. Let us also talk about the great Theotokos, or, as most of you know her, Mary, the Holy Mother of God. In the history of Russia, she was probably praised and worshipped more than Jesus himself. Mary was the example of piousness, humility, and love, and her faith and love were so great that she delivered to the world the Son of God, but really God himself. She was not equal to the men around her time. She was greater. She was awesome. She single-handedly saved the world from sure destruction by bringing God in human form to earth so that he may save us by suffering as a human and dying for our sins. Any preacher will tell you this. Everybody knows this. And how can you say that this woman had a minor and insignificant role? If it weren't for her, there would be no Christianity, because we would have never known Christ. Let's not forget also that it was Mary Magdalene and the oil-bearer women who discovered that Jesus had been had come back from the dead, they were the first to know, and they were the first to spread the news. This great honor befell women, not men. Now let's talk about Eve. This is always a big issue, even for religious women. Women came from the rib of man. This is a horrendous breach of equality, Or is it? If you think about it, without all the religious connotations, man is made out of mud or dirt, but woman is made out of flesh and bone. So clearly the substance that the woman is made from is greater, better than the male substance. Now there's a great quote floating around the internet. As far as I know, it's anonymous, but if anyone knows the person who actually is responsible for it, I would love to know. Woman was taken out of man, not out of his head to top him, nor out of his feet to be trampled underfoot, but out of his side to be equal to him, under his arm to be protected, and near his heart to be loved. That's the quote. Also, there is this in the Bible, if you read it, Adam, when he asks God for a person, he doesn't ask for a servant. He doesn't ask for, someone who will serve him. He asks for a partner, an equal partner. He doesn't ask for a wife character. Not that it existed back then, but anyway. So to further that quote, let me just say that according to St. Paul's epistle to the Ephesians, chapter 5, through marriage man and woman are again joined into one being, and the two shall be one flesh. In the same epistle, St. Paul says, I speak concerning Christ and the church. So here I'm going to call to my aid an article, or maybe it was a speech, I'm not sure, made by Archbishop Lazar Pucholo of Ottawa, titled Gender as Prophecy and Revelation, and the link is going to be posted in the bar below. Now, if any of you have heard of this guy, which I doubt, you will know that he's often controversial in his views and opinions, but I feel that this article is very well worded and put together and provides an interesting, informative, and clear explanation of the roles of men and women in the Bible. And I think that this is a view, or I don't think that, but this is a view that is common through all of Orthodoxy, not just for this guy. He writes that, quote, the dividing of humanity into two genders has a prophetic intent, end quote. The prophetic role of men is in revelation about Christ, and the prophetic role of women is in revelation about the church. There is no relative value in these roles, since the mystery of redemption is the mystery of Christ and the church. Sorry, that's the end quote. What he means is that one cannot successfully survive and be saved without the other. The Bible and Paul's epistle make many references to how the relationship between Christ and the church is that of wedlock. Quote, the same prophetic role extends incidentally to the family, quite naturally, as the very intent of marriage is to be, as Scripture clearly declares, a revelation about the relationship between Christ and the church, end quote. Now the Archbishop continues to make a very important point. This realization that gender is connected to prophecy and revelation has been largely lost because man in his arrogance began to relate the respective roles of men and women to relative value. When role was identified with value, humanity was degraded, women were reduced to serfdom, and the whole mystery and meaning of human gender and marriage was lost, end quote. So it is apparent that it was not God's intention or the intention of the Bible, or even of religion, to place either gender above the other. It was people who made this happen. In fact, St. Paul points out in the epistles that in heaven there is no longer a distinction of genders. This is because the prophecy of unity between Christ and church have already happened on earth and been fulfilled, which leaves genders unnecessary. The point I'm getting at here is that everything in the universe, whether you believe in God or not, has clear-cut roles and responsibilities. By the laws of physics, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and everything has a counterpart. In this way, men and women also have roles and responsibilities, and they are not interchangeable or insignificant. Man and woman were not created to exist in egoistic isolation, the Archbishop says. Quote, men are worth no more than women, women no more than men. But if we allowed the prophetic role of either or both to be corrupted, then we destroy the ultimate worth of both. End quote. This is also the reason why women in Orthodoxy cannot be ordained as priests. It is not because they are unworthy, it's not even a question of that. It's because the priest is an image of Christ. And a woman cannot be an image of Christ, the husband, because she has to fulfill prophecy of being the church, the wife. Neither is more important, for salvation cannot be achieved through one half of the whole. We need both. Now, when I talk about all this prophetic stuff and say words like mother and wife, I can just imagine you picturing that I mean every man must go to work in the mines, while the woman stays home and cleans and cooks and gives birth. This is one of the great errors of our time, one of our big misinterpretations. To quote the Archbishop once again, many people have for centuries equated roles with value, and they have extended the roles of men and women in the liturgical life of the Church, which deals with prophecy and revelation, to society, politics, and industry, which have nothing to do with faith or the salvation of humanity. End quote. Moreover, let me personally add that this was done without fully understanding what the roles meant and what they stood for. People saw male priests and assumed that all leadership positions should be filled by men, when this was never stated, specified, or intended. The beautiful thing about life is that I, as a woman, can both have a rewarding career, for example. I've just finished studying to be an engineer, but at the same time I can fulfill my prophecy as a woman and as an image of the Church, because the two do not interfere. My spiritual life, which is what I'm talking about with all this prophecy stuff, is separate from my job and whether I choose to be a stay-at-home mom. This is important to understand. So, this video isn't an attempt to convert or convince anybody. I wasn't trying to tell you Orthodoxy is the way to go. Everyone makes their own choices, obviously. But I was merely trying to illustrate and present to you, mostly the women, that Christian Orthodoxy is not biased towards men and holds women and men with equal regard. From the view of the Bible and religion, men and women are equal. Just as a final addition, let me tell you this interesting fact about Orthodoxy, and one of the myriad differences it has from Catholicism. An Orthodox priest is allowed to marry, as long as the wedding happens before he is ordained, and have children, so the loving relationship between the husband, priest, father, protector, Christ, and the wife, mother, caregiver, the Church, is always there in front of the parish as an example of how two very different but equal halves make one indestructible whole. So I hope this was informative and interesting. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to message, comment, video respond, and all that other stuff. Thanks for tuning in. God bless you all.